Dark Vision. This is a 2015 British horror movie with a somewhat familiar premise. What is the premise? Well, you've kind of seen it a couple of times before. It's a group of amateur ghost hunters going into a historical place of interest which has had rumours of hauntings and strange goings on to try and capture something on film. The spin here is that these guys are actually part of kind of an online competition to try and get the best footage they can and win the competition and basically be picked up kind of for a regular show. Now, as you'd expect, it's being a movie, there are strange stuff going on. The guys actually think it's going to be a hoax, first of all. They've kind of prepped some fake stuff and sort of gags and things to try and get something on film. But there is actually this sort of spirit of this, what it's told of, this William Baylock, who used to be this guy who used to go around and sort of murder people who had the Black Plague hundreds of years ago. To try, I guess mercy killings, really, but we're sort of told he may well have been a sort of Satanist, and as you'd expect, his spirit is walking around. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that in the way, because we're sort of told that as well as him being a kind of phantom, he's actually part demon as well, and that things may be a little bit more complex than we first thought, and there may be sort of some manipulation going on via the internet to try and get these people here. But I won't give too much away. So, what is the film like? Well, this is a low-budget film, as you'd probably expect, although I think they do a fairly good job of some of the technical aspects of this movie. So, first of all, I will say this. I thought it was fairly well shot. There are elements of found footage here, though generally speaking is your traditional sort of style of camera work here. A few shots here and there, it kind of does go into a little bit of found footage. I don't feel that was necessary, I have to be honest, because so much of the film was shot in a traditional way. I thought the kind of found footage side of it was a little bit distracting at times. The locations, I think, are great. I think there's some pretty good set design here. It all looks quite menacing. There's some fairly sort of good sort of establishing shots, setting mood and stuff like that. So on a technical side, I think it's actually fairly well made. I think the music is also quite good. The effects are there's not a lot of effects. I think the kind of the bad guy, I'll call him the creature, is somewhat menacing, but they have they kind of fall into the trap of making him come out in the light a little bit, and that kind of really takes away from some of the kind of the menace, and he should have stuck to the shadows a little bit more. I think there's one scene where we sort of see him walking around in daylight, and it just it kind of really deflates, unfortunately, the kind of the mood that is that it brings up the rest of the movie. There are a few visual effects here and kind of makeup effects. Again, not bad for the budget. Some of the video effects are obviously video effects, and there's a bit of sort of CGI blood and things like that. But what are you going to do at this kind of budget? However, by far and away, the two issues I have with this movie are, first of all, the acting. Some of the acting here is really bad, and it comes across as just people kind of reading off a page, and that's how their sort of dialogue sounds, unfortunately. It goes from bad to kind of mediocre, but for the most part, unfortunately, there's no one here who is a particularly great actor. The best you're going to get is somewhat sort of average, but going all the way back down to pretty damn bad. I don't feel like we got a particularly good sense of who the characters are. Sometimes they seem a little bit cartoony, and that is partially for the way they're acted as well. The action actually doesn't really start. Nothing really supernatural happens until a good over 40 minutes into the film. So I think it was a little bit of a slow start as well. And I do think there are some inconsistencies in logic and storytelling here. People seem to sort of get separated for no particular reason, and there's sort of there seems to be why they're on their own. Why is this person in this area on their own all of a sudden, and sort of things like that. And there just seems the kind of communication is quite poor. At the beginning of the movie, we see one of the sort of characters is actually unconscious, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on, to be quite honest. And apparently she's under some kind of hypnosis, but it doesn't do a good enough job of sort of telling us what's sort of going on. So it comes across as a little bit confusing about the actual sort of setup and what's going on sort of here and there. It wasn't a bad film. I've seen worse films like this. I think there are a couple of reasonable reveals here, and it kind of, for me, it kind of picked up as the film sort of progressed and got towards the end. And I was thinking of scoring this on pretty low when I was kind of watching it, but I have to say, I somewhat enjoyed it, although I'm hesitant to give it a too high a mark because I don't think it's going to be anyone's going to say this is a particularly fantastic film. But I do think it has some redeeming elements, and it's probably, you know, if you're a fan of these kind of low budget films, I think for it, at the very least, you could probably say this is fairly well made for the budget. So I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. So it's just below average for me on the scale of things. So that's how I rate it. 4 out of 10. So have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.